Okay. You said we have Guy on also?
Yep.
Great. Well, let's call this meeting of the CPDC to order. Not too bad. Andrew, would you like to go over the regular opening spiel?
Sure thing. Thank you all for joining us tonight for the CPDC meeting of Monday, May 11th. I'm Andrew McNichol, the Community Development Director, and to my right from staff is also Senior Planner Olivia Knightley. The board is running a hybrid meeting tonight, so we have members of the board and the public, both in person and over the Zoom. From the board in person, from my left to right is member Tom Armstrong, Chair Heather Klisch, and Hillary Mateve. Also on the Zoom is Guy Mangianello. The board is likely to follow their standard procedure tonight in that an applicant will present their application to the board will provide comment and question amongst themselves to the applicant, and then open to public comment. If you do have public comment, please raise your hand. The chair will look to acknowledge you, and you can come to the podium and ask your question and or comment. If you're on the Zoom, please look for the raise hand feature found under reactions, and we'll look to find you that way. Or you can type chats directly to us as hosts, but we'd prefer to get your comments over the mic if we can help it. If you do have public comment, please just state your name and address for the record, for the minutes. There's a sign-in sheet in the corner for anyone who hasn't done so already. Otherwise, this meeting is being recorded and broadcasted by RCTV and will be on their YouTube following tonight's meeting. I think that's it.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. Our first order of business is a sign permit application for 78 Haven Street for Face Haven Aesthetics. Is there somebody here who's here to present on that?
Can ask Juan to unmute.
The sign mechanic is online. The business owner is here tonight as well.
Juan, go ahead. You ready?
Oh, hi, how are you? My name is Juan Tormillo, 121 Broadway Riviera. And we're proposing a sign for Face Haven. And this is gonna be a sign made of letters and PVC, mountain, copper, ACM material with a frame. And it's gonna have a layer of gold finish just to go with the my customer, Heather, request. It's pretty explanatory, and I have sign is 8 feet by 3 feet, and it's going to be attached on the wall with regular brackets and anchors. That's pretty much finished.
Okay. Any comments or questions from the commission here?
I wanted to confirm that there's no internal or external illumination.
Oh yes, I'm sorry, I forgot to say that. It's not an internal or external illumination there.
All right.
And this is in keeping with the design guidelines for this building, for the block.
Oh yes. Yeah, we're trying to keep the same format as the ones they have next door. And of course it's going to be newer, but it's about the same.
Yeah, even for the smaller frontage, it still meets the sign area requirements.
Okay.
We didn't dimension the window signs because they don't need a permit, but that appears to be compliant as well.
Okay. There are signs in the window also?
If you can see that. And I don't know if they'll...
Not yet. No, we are not putting any signs on the window, so yeah.
Okay.
I had no comments.
I have no comments, really. It's other than I would have confirmed the lighting as well. It seems to be in keeping with all of the requirements of the district, and seems to be a nice looking sign that is also in keeping with the style of the adjacent ones. Yep. Guy, any questions from you?
think I asked him to.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yep.
I just want to confirm, this is Haven Street, right? Not Heaven Street? It said Heaven on, I believe it's Haven, but on the.
Yes.
Okay, all right, yep. No questions.
Yes, there were a few typos, I think, on the application page and on the sign rendering, but it is Face Haven, yes.
Okay, no questions, I like that, it's fine.
And it looks to be corrected on the certificate of appropriateness that we'll approve.
Which I can pull up now.
Yeah, so why don't we just take a look at that?
Does the public have any questions?
That's a good question. Any questions from the public? Oh, yes, please come up here because then people online can see you as well.
Okay, I'm a little short, so I can't.
I am too,
So, if I did decide to put just sort of like a sign attached to the window, nothing sort of like a sticky sign, you know? Do I have to resubmit an application?
No, so a window sign won't require it, but there are some regulations around it, like you can only cover 30% of the window. So
Okay.
if you can just check in with us on what
Okay.
you plan, we can administratively look at that.
Okay,
Exactly, so administratively means that Andrew looks at it, consults with the chair, and you don't have to come back to an evening meeting.
okay, all right.
Okay, good, thank you. Any other questions from the public?
None on Zoom.
Okay, we can look at the certificate of appropriateness.
So pretty straightforward, just detailed the sizing and no illumination proposed, as well as some of the finer details there, but this will basically condition them and allow them to go for building permitting, so.
Okay,
Do I make a motion
Yeah.
here? I
let's move to
will
approve that.
make a motion to approve the 78 Haven Street Face Haven Aesthetics sign as presented.
Okay,
Second,
great, and we'll do a roll call since we have a member online. I'll start with Guy.
yes.
All right, Hillary?
Yes.
Heather, yes.
Tom, yes.
And we don't have any others online,
Nope.
right? Okay, so that's approved. That was quick and easy. Thank you for a good and clear application.
Thank you so much.
We'll follow up this week with you guys.
Absolutely. Thank you. Have a great night.
Thanks, Juan.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you as well.
Likewise, good luck.
Thank you.
If I can propose potentially taking one item out of order.
Okay, great, because the rest of ours is just other business.
Yes,
What
so
would you
if
like
we
to take
could
out of order?
Grab the A&R now. The engineer and I believe the owner are here. So
Okay, and that looks like it's actually the
it's
next
actually
step
in
we go.
order. So
So yes, we will hear from the approval not required plan here on the A&R plan endorsement request for 483 Franklin Street. Yes,
Yeah.
please. Sorry to be so formal, but
okay,
it's how
yeah.
people online can see you too.
Sure. So my name's Tom Walsh, and I'm the owner of Trinity Development. And I believe,
It's not gonna be the same.
I think Jack's got some
Is that Jack?
feedback going, yeah.
yeah, so I've got Jack joining us. Jack, it's my turn to speak.
You're doing good, Tom.
You
Well,
just have
thank you
some
so much.
background noise there, Jack.
Yeah. Anyway, Jack, I just introduced myself, and I think we have the plan up. And yeah, I mean, it speaks for itself. So we're looking to build a new home, and it's a beautiful lot. We're excited to get the project started, and we're here to see if to gain your approval.
Yeah, so to remind the board, an approval not, and public really, approval not required plans are subdivision plans that don't need to go through the public hearing process because they are typically subdivisions either for non-buildable lots or land swaps or for lots that exist on public ways already, as is in the case here. So the lot existing is being divided in two with the new lot to be created meeting the minimum zoning requirements for lot size and frontage to allow a buildable lot. And the existing structure will also maintain a compliant lot in lot size and frontage. So qualifies for A&R as a subdivision on an existing way.
Yep, can I add one thing to that, Andrew?
Yep.
This is Jack Sullivan. Yeah, and just so the CPDC members know, this is in the S20 zoning district. So we're required each lot has to have 120 feet of frontage, 20,000 square feet of land area. So each of the new lots, as Andrew said, meets that. And the existing house to remain at 483, we meet all the dimensional setbacks to retain the existing structure.
You'll need a new driveway permit through engineering for the existing structure, and likely the new lot too, but that's through engineering division.
Right, so for the existing house, Tom just recently built the detached garage that's shown. And we did have a permit for that and for the driveway that's coming in. Tom just paved that driveway, so engineering's on board with that. And we're still working on plans for the new lot.
Great.
Just as an aside, not that it's relevant, where does the driveway go in relation to the garage?
There's an existing curb cut. Yep, Andrew's pointing at it, or Olivia's pointing at it, yep.
Okay.
There's an existing curb cut there, and if that's the face of the garage is where it's a two-car garage, the doors face Franklin Street.
Okay.
Andrew, what did you say the minimum lot frontage is here again?
120 feet.
Okay, so lot 2 just is that exactly.
Yep.
Any other questions from the commission?
The driveway was my big question.
Yeah, that driveway is gonna be filled in and graded or something like that.
It is,
The
yeah,
existing
it's
one.
complete. And when we built the garage, we built a salt box.
Oh, no, not the garage, but on
Oh, yeah, I was just
lot
saying,
2.
yeah. But we built a salt box that would actually mirror the historic home that's there.
Oh, okay.
And I went through the historic committee and had that qualified as well. So the roof lines match nicely. Yeah. But the driveway's been put in, and it provides a little bit better entrance and exit as opposed to where the previous one was, where backing out of there wasn't enough room in the driveway to be able to turn a car around and come through nose first. And I've come out of that driveway several times. It's very dangerous as people come around that corner. What we did on the driveway up there is we actually built a T turnaround. So when somebody pulls in nose first into the driveway, when they back out, they go back into the T and then come down nose first, which is, I think, significantly safer.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, any questions from the public?
Seeing none?
So the lot line will continue to have that little bit of retaining wall right there.
Yes. I mean, that's a good question. That retaining wall, Jack, I don't think it needs to be modified, but it will probably be detailed in the easement.
That's a loose stone, a field stone wall in the back. It's not a retaining wall. That's going to remain where your cursor is now. That's to remain. And we're creating an easement over some of that land for a view. So that doesn't impede anything.
Okay, on at least on Google Maps, maybe it's hard to see. It looks like it's actually holding up a different elevation by the driveway. The driveway looks like a short retaining wall. It looks like the driveway is abutted on the house side.
In that location,
Yes, sorry.
that's changed at this point. When I did the survey, there were some steps there. There was a garage that he took down. That's been eliminated now. So that will not encroach onto the new lot.
And again, not relevant, but behind the stone wall, you said there's gonna be some clearing to help a view. Does that have to go through the arborist or anything like that, Andrew?
Not as a private parcel, no public trees or impacts, so.
Okay, any other questions by the committee or by anybody in the public?
None.
Okay. So I think, is our motion to endorse the A and R?
The motion is to endorse.
Yeah.
Correct.
Do I read the
Is
certificate
that
of
the
action?
certificate that we're looking for?
There's a memo, the certificate you can read, yeah, that's what typically we send to get recorded with the plan.
Okay.
Or you could just
I think we can
motion
just
to endorse the
do
plan.
a motion to endorse it.
A motion to endorse the site plan prepared by Sullivan Engineering Group dated April 21st, 2026, for 483 Franklin Street, Assessors Map 38, Lot 172.
That's good.
Second,
All right, we'll do a roll call. Guy?
yes.
Right, Hillary?
Yes.
Heather, yes?
Tom, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Great,
Thank you very much.
thanks, Jack.
Have a good evening.
Yep, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
you, Jack.
Yep.
All right.
Well, I take it the Eastern Gateway is not gonna go that fast.
I haven't done it yet.
that?
Oh, that's good though.
And we have you here on the clock, so let's go ahead and go ahead with the Eastern Gateway update.
Yeah, so we invited Michael Wang from Foreman Place back, just on the last discussion with the board around uses and some things that could be considered but warrant a bit more discussion. We tried to put some pen to paper on it, so we're here tonight just to see what else should be discussed in that effort, and some of those topics, but Mike's got a few slides that he'll start with to show some of his work that can help explain it. So.
It's terrific. Thank you for preparing those.
Yeah, my pleasure. So again, I'm Michael Wang. I'm with Foreman Place, which is a small architecture and planning firm based in Newton. And pleasure to be back with you, and I've enjoyed working with Andrew and Olivia for almost 2 years now.
Yeah.
So, Andrew, is there anything you wanted to say as a broader update first before I go into my slides? Or
I don't think so. We had a few specific questions or more just talking points based on the last discussion and updates that we tried to quickly summarize for you, just as bullet points, but I think Mike's slides will also get at it, and that way we can just discuss really what are the impacts or considerations or benefits and restraints of the items we talked about last time, which was potentially expanding down Walker's Brook and potentially expanding along Ash, but also considering other uses in different ways, most specifically some of the smaller scale residentials. And so we amended the draft bylaw still to try to reflect some of that, and we can summarize that too otherwise.
Okay, so I really have three topics that I have some slides to share with you on. The first is, I think it's always good from time to time to step back and review the district goals, particularly when you're sort of formulating a bylaw and associated design guidelines. So I'll just spend a few minutes on a couple slides there. And then, as Andrew said, we'll look at some graphics that I've put together, sort of expanding the district boundary and the buffer zones potentially associated with that. And then lastly, I'll show you a study of some Ash Street liner sites that could, be potentially in play with if the district expands, and we'll look at ideas about connectivity and density and other issues on those sites. So, I'm gonna go to the next one. So, just as a reminder, I don't know if the full slide is on the screen there, Andrew, but
See if
sorry. So just looking back sort of historically, obviously the Eastern Gateway District, which you see outlined in the light blue there, used to extend to the north, thank you, across Walker's Brook Drive. And this was sort of set up through the 2016 Economic Development Action Plan, which was followed up in 2019 with the first Eastern Gateway redevelopment study that focused on that pink area, largely to the south of the commuter rail line. I think the goals that were set during that period have been reiterated and supported by all the community outreach work we've been doing over the last couple of years. A couple of the points that were highlighted in that 2019 study were an emphasis on compact mixed-use development, which makes sense given the TOD proximity transit-oriented development location. Walkability and connectivity was thought as an important component to be enhanced, and usable public space was also a very important highlight, involving not only placemaking initiatives, but integrating cultural activity. So go to the next one, please. So jumping forward to December of 2024, this is a summary of feedback from the first open house that we did, community open house, again, I guess about 1.5 years ago. And it expanded on those ideas of mixed-use development, re-emphasized that as a priority, the #1 theme actually, and then walkability and connectivity you see there as well, and open space and sustainable design, both for site design and building design. It added in, you see #4 bullet point on the upper right there, an emphasis on housing, and we got into some discussions about the missing middle. That type of housing typology that's between single and two family and larger multifamily product. And there was a real interest in diversity and density of housing typologies. The feedback was suggesting that people were very comfortable with the 3 to 4 story typology, but thought that the commercial ground floor component or an active ground floor component was a very important piece of that. So it brings us back to the mixed use equation. With that architectural character, there was a lot of commentary on that, and people were definitely looking for stuff that was compatible with the historic context, but were also interested in from a more contemporary take on that. So that was nice to hear. And if you go to the next one, Andrew, this was from our October 25 workshop that we did most recently, where we had people actually building site design solutions in groups using foam core modeling. It was a very fun session, and what we got out of that were some interesting ideas about the scale of mixed use that people thought was appropriate on the site. But again, you can see an emphasis on mixed use environments and publicly accessible open space. Those topics continue to raise to the fore. Next. So that's just, I think that puts things back into context. And I think when we're thinking not only about shaping the bylaw and uses that we want to target and dimensional criteria, I think it's important to keep that in mind, and that'll also come into play with design guidelines, particularly with issues of design, architectural character and site design. So shifting here now to the second point, which was the Eastern Gateway District extents. You can see here the original study area. It was about 65 acres. It included the PDA 3 and PDA 4, which were prior to development areas identified in the Economic Development Action Plan. Next. And you can see here on the existing zoning map, that red border, that is what that first study area represented. And you can see that it is 95%, I guess, approximately in the industrial zone. And it also is covered by the PUDI zone. There's a small corner close to Main Street and downtown there that has some business uses, but you can see the lion's share there. So if you now go to the next one, Andrew, you can see this second red line that I've added in here, which expands the district per your thoughts, Andrew and Olivia, about the feedback I think you guys had discussed maybe at the last meeting. And this goes all the way to the Reading Town, Wakefield Town line to the east, which captures the Walkersbrook parcels all the way to the town line. And it also expands to Ash Street. So you're getting that Ash Street liner of single-family residential parcels included in the district now. Worth noting that that is actually not in the industrial underlying zoning. All right, next.
Could you just show back on that one where Walkersbrook Drive is?
Walkersbrook is.
I think the
At the
dark
top
one is
This
the railroad.
line here.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's Bolton on the top.
Right.
Here, this gives you a better
Yeah.
graphic of it. You can go to the next, yeah, there we go.
Okay.
So there's Walkersbrook. You can see the town line to the right, Ash Street down at the bottom left, Bolton Street at the top. And it was interesting is this results in approximately 100 acres. This is a rough takeoff because it's done from GIS mapping, but what's interesting is that you now have about 50% of the district is south of the commuter rail line and 50% to the north, where we've expanded that area, particularly to the east of New Crossing on the north side there, to pick up those couple of parcels at the far right there on Walkersbrook Drive. And you can see the dashed blue line underneath the sort of orangish shaded area that represents the old original study area. So you can see the liner of Ash Street parcels at the bottom there.
Can you clarify one thing? I think I got confused there. Did you say the parcels were added on the Walkersbrook Drive area? Are you talking about just the area that's kind of to the south?
Just these two parcels
All
to
right.
the south here. So we had
All right,
previously stopped on parcels fronting New Crossing and Walkersbrook, but it came up as if we should discuss these two.
Yeah.
And if you go back to look at the original Eastern Gateway District outline, which was that light blue outline on the first slide, it actually does go to the town line. And of course it goes to the north of Walkersbrook, but so I think that's sort of validates that idea.
and I want to be clear, I don't know how many people are watching at home, but I just wanna be clear that what's happened here is on the Ash Street side is for the discussion tonight. It's the study area has been expanded. We aren't necessarily talking about rezoning. but
No,
we're
not yet. It's just for discussion purposes. I was also gonna say that. So thank you. Just for discussion, see if something that for benefits of Reading residents and if there's the way the bylaw could incorporate them to have benefits without also taking away from them.
Yep. And the next slide maybe helps clarify a little bit here with the buffer zones. And these buffer zones are still TBD and both in their width, but also in what the criteria are that are associated with them. But this represents a 250-foot setback or the setback zone from each of the three bordering streets. So you can see on Ash Street in the purple there, it really includes all of the single-family parcels that are lining the street there. And so there would be different criteria associated with that zone. And even the deepest of the parcels along Ash Street there are completely within that setback zone. So I don't, and there's other things related to those setbacks that we can discuss when we get back to the any discussions about the bylaw text. But do you want to say anything else about that, or?
No, there was other natural stopping points. One could try to look on Ash Street, but again, for the discussion purposes, we wanted to look at the whole area and whole corridor for you guys, but other streets, wetland buffers, things like that came up as other natural stopping points of where could like a rezoning effort look at and stop, which can have different reasonings, but we figured at least to start to have the whole discussion, let's just make sure we're talking about the corridor of Ash Street as a whole rather than any specific piece of it, so.
Maybe go to the next and we'll shift gears to sort of the third category here. This, you may recall, was a combined, I guess, really feasibility study of sites on the north and sites on the south. And I'm putting this back up to remind you of, the one alternative approach that was considered, but to see also that those parcels on Ash Street there are outside of this original study area. And in fact, this particular iteration left the DPW and that purple medical office building towards the bottom of the screen in their current configuration, and they weren't considered as part of this particular study. But if you go to the next, Andrew, this is really to sort of tee up the idea that these Ash Street parcels that go down, in fact, will go all the way down to the town line, which is not completely depicted in this particular rendering, but I'm going to show you a few examples of feasibility studies that could be done on some of these parcels in the same way that we did on the other sites on the north and south of the tracks, just to give you a sense of what type of development could potentially happen here in the future, and how would that relate to the transition that one would hope to have to the surrounding residential neighborhood. So there were some ideas about potential, future connectivity. There's always been a lot of discussion about what would be the connection between Walkersbrook Drive and Ash Street. What could that look like? And in many different iterations. But let's look particularly at a couple of these alternatives here. This was one idea about, and honestly, these through connectors are they're neither here nor there in terms of looking at the density of what's happening on these parcels, as you'll see, but it just gives you an idea of another potential connection should parcels be reconfigured in the future or aggregated. So this was an idea about taking the very end of Pond Meadow, which moves to I guess it's the northwest from, I don't have a pointer, but from New Crossing, and it connects down through that existing roadway that provides access to the medical office building, which is the purple building, and then suggests that maybe that could find its way out to Ash Street. But if you go to the next, Andrew, that's really just to give you an example of how future development on aggregated parcels could happen along there, and what would the scale of that development look like appropriately. And so you can see here, I'm showing townhouses. This is, again, at a broad scale. We can zoom in a second, but showing townhouse, row house development on either side of that through street. And then as you move deeper into the residential abutting neighborhoods, you can go to the next one. You can see those two light blue blocks at the bottom of the screen are really what we call 4-unit homes, which is a typology that is becoming increasingly common, including in my community in Newton. You see old homes being larger Victorian homes, and others being converted into 4-unit homes that are really 2 units over 2 units, each with separate entrances, and but they have a scale that fits into or helps the transition to surrounding single-family homes, and they feel appropriate in that context. But you can see here the different typologies that are being used. The orange and dark blue that's on the upper left there is a remnant from that previous scheme that is a 3-story building with 2 levels of residential above ground floor retail. So that's one sort of small scale mixed use typology. And then we're introducing more row house typologies. And then lastly, these 4-unit homes as you continue to transition to the neighborhood. So if you add the next layer in here, Andrew, this just gives you a sense, if you were to look at these as aggregated parcels and think about the amount of development and residential density that you would find on these combined parcels, you can see that the larger one to the north there has about 54 dwelling units on about a little less than 3 acres. So that's yielding 18, 19 dwelling units per acre. And then the smaller aggregated parcels to the south of that, what I'm calling New Street, which again is, it could be without that street, it would still be the same potential for those sites. But with those row houses and 4-unit homes, you're on that 1.2 acre combined site, you're looking at about almost 20 dwelling units per acre. So when you think about the bylaw that we've been drafting and exploring different densities and other things, I think, Andrew, there had been 15 dwelling units per acre had been considered potentially as a baseline, and there may be the option to have a 20 units or 25 units in this buffer zone by special permit if a scheme, the concept felt like it was being context sensitive and appropriate. So this just gives you a visual for what, maybe 15 to 20 dwelling units per acre would look like in this concept. And I'm going to just show you one other one which has a different idea about a connector. This is going to be number 4, which it basically suggests a connection between the medical office building and the DPW here. And again, this is just providing a logic for parcelization, but and it could work whether this through connector is there or not. But if you go to the next, you can see here I've introduced, back up closer to Avon Street, I've introduced another one of those mixed-use 3-story residential over retail buildings that kind of mirrors from the building that is fronting on the green near Station 1. And then combining that with more of those 4-unit homes. This doesn't actually add any more row homes in this case, but those 4-unit homes marching down and having the same rhythm of the single-family homes across the street and farther to the southeast. If you add the last layer on there, well, there's the blow-up of that, and you can see how the access and parking and open space buffers and all that are all happening behind these structures. So I think these buildings are appropriately sited, set back from the street in a way that's consistent with the other surrounding areas. But again, and to the next one, this last layer shows you that if you thought of that as one larger aggregated parcel now with all those typologies all on one common lot, you're looking at about 4.5 acres of combined site there, and that yields between the 3-story mixed use, the row houses, and the new 4-unit homes, it's yielding 88 dwelling units, which again translates to 20 dwelling units per acre. So that those schemes, both of those feasibility studies are interestingly yielding about the same level of density for, I think, what does still feel like it's making an effort to be contextual and transition to the scale of the surrounding neighborhoods. So I'm going to stop there.
I think one thing that would be helpful is on the 4-unit homes to ultimately show us a picture of what.
Oh, I have one. Yeah, I don't have it in this show, but
that's fine.
I'll bring it next time.
We can get it later. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think also all those diversions and lines are going to require foreclosure of some kind or concessions by some kind of.
So that's the hard part still is, right, part of the discussion was like, how can expanding possibly foster connections from Ash Street? But even still with the fragmented parcels and all the number of different parcels to get to Pond Meadow, there's no way to like hard and fast require that. But it started to look at how could Ash Street be incorporated, and some of those connections, right, could change in a development if there was aggregated parcels, and someone could look at Avon or Shackford or other to try to foster that type of connection, whether it's pedestrian only or vehicle or not. It's still the hard part of how do you achieve that aspect of it. But when we looked at it to try to allow residential transitions as well, did somewhat fit in that buffer zone because you could allow those 2 families where that already exist up and down Ash, smaller multifamily and or townhome like units up and down Ash. And we tried to look to see if there was a way to write that in to say these parcels could stand on their own for gentle density to allow an extra unit or two, or even three maybe if the lot size is big enough. And there seemed to be a way to look at that by looking at the lot sizes for certain uses, right? Saying that a 2-family or a townhome would only require a 10,000 square foot lot versus a mixed use and or multifamily requiring that whole acre style development. So that way an Ash Street home could add a unit, but also to still get at the intensity behind that we were looking for those mixed use developments. But it is a lot of like different pieces for sure.
It's a lot of different pieces, and something that I think is just undeniable to me is that the options 3, 4, and the slide number 17, options 3 and 4, and for that matter 5, require new roads through current residential properties.
Yeah, and that's like the part that again is not necessarily to say that someone behind is going to go purchase this lot, but where would connections make sense if you thought of the whole corridor transitioning over the long term, but not necessarily to say like a private development or other would just look to somehow get an easement or connection through there because it might make those lots like non-compliant. It was just more where did they maybe make sense to look at.
But if you had an attractive mixed-use development to the north and you were purchasing parcels along Ash Street to aggregate them and to do some kind of a larger scale development, I think you can imagine that it would be advantageous to maybe propose some kind of a connection for people who are in that to get through to Walker's Brook and to that new world up on the north side there.
Yeah.
And how is this going to be an overlay zone in pieces like
yes,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
I think so. The whole zone, yes. These connections are not necessarily like factored into the zoning.
Yeah, no, it's not a zoning issue.
Right.
And the reason, I'm sorry to ask this because we may be backtracking to previous meetings when we were discussing this very late at night, but is the reason that numbers 1 and 2 aren't fleshed out here is because those are already part of our previous planning?
Yeah, they
so
were.
We were exploring, I'm just kind of
You can see them there,
rehashing
yeah.
what was discussed at the last meeting. We were exploring whether or not connections, I guess, further south on Ash Street, what they would potentially look like, right?
Yeah, you can see the 1 and 2 are on either side of that yellow, the Station 1 building up there.
Yeah, like where
which is a bit of a
residential
circuitous.
properties wouldn't need to be disrupted.
Yes,
right.
That's true. Yeah.
Right.
Well, one thing ultimately that might help would be to identify 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and just put the obstacles, just list the obstacles there, because we might find that some are more feasible than others.
Yeah, between grade changes and things down there, it's some of it is hard for sure.
Even thought about grade
Yeah,
changes.
because we're looking at a flat plan, but like.
Right. Yeah.
Is that how, like, which ones do that?
I would have thought it would have been fine back there.
Closer around DPW, there's some grade change down there,
Down
probably
there.
about 10 to 20 feet behind
Oh,
some
wow.
of those properties. So
Glad you know that.
that's
Yeah.
that's again a limiting factor. And again, it was mostly to try to talk about zoning and if there were allowances for Ash Street that we would still certainly want to discuss more broadly with like the neighborhood or other, but if this was even worth trying to discuss going forward, or if Ash Street should potentially just be left as its own.
So in theory, the underlying zoning is staying intact, and this is just giving people more options and, you know, in reality, really increasing the value of their property because there's additional potential options there.
I couldn't understand that chart.
And that's why you're asking if it's an overlay, because,
Right,
we're not changing the underlying zoning.
Yeah, and then you can, in conjunction with that, you need to control the type of development that's happening there through not only the zoning criteria, but the design guidelines, so that if you're opening up the development of those parcels either individually or aggregated, you really need to make sure that what happens there in the future is still being very sensitive to the surrounding context.
Right.
That's
And
right.
the point of this table was to try to simplify these buffer zones, purple, green, and blue, to say more specifically in the purple and green, that's where you'd be looking to establish your 2-family and townhomes. And right now it was written to say mixed use and multifamily, but only on the 1 acre, where only commercial parcels, where there's 2 1-acre lots in the purple and or green that are 1 acre or more, and they're already commercial. So the point of that buffer zone was to say, we're limiting the height, we're limiting the densities, we're limiting the allowances on the existing parcels of their size, but looking to try to say that something like a 2-family or a townhome could be established in that buffer zone. Not to say that a small mixed use couldn't work, but it's a bit more difficult to make work, especially if we establish a 1 acre minimum. And
So we're
so,
also limiting a lot of other uses,
right.
hotel and.
Mhm.
And for the 1 acre, you're not talking about ganging 5 parcels together to make it?
Well, that's like the thing, like that could happen, and that's like, right, the consideration there of how do you, if the parcels were to combine and say reach that 1 acre total, what happens then, and is that something that's appropriate further down Ash Street, which may or may not be the case, but again, still limited in height and more setbacks and the density, even if they were to aggregate.
I mean, Ash Street, when you get along down there, in the red polygon that's outlined, it's quite residential.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a similar condition to what we currently have on the Bolton Street frontage too, where you have residential across the street from it. So it's just a matter of making that appropriate.
Right,
at that edge.
and it's come up as like if other neighborhoods can facilitate along with this through some neighborhood and public discussions in the focus groups or other of like if there is opportunity to do the 2 or 3 unit typologies there. And so this was just one way to try to look at it.
Yeah. On the extensions question, I feel like I want to kind of, well, you had a list of things that we should discuss, right?
Yeah, it was mostly just what the changes were, and again, do they start to make sense or not? Let me just pull those up to refresh myself.
Okay, before we go there,
Yep.
I feel like we skipped over kind of any sort of like maybe we're not ready for a conclusion, but on the connector question, I will just put out there that yes, we need to explore what's actually feasible. Is that it makes me very, very nervous that if community members saw that we were proposing new streets down their neighbors, down their lot lines, that it could garner some blowback against this entire initiative. So unless others feel passionately about it, I kind of don't want to give a lot of energy at this juncture before going to the community into fleshing those concepts out. If there's a way to kind of keep it on the table so that the residents could process the notion that their property values might change, and that might be appealing to them. I wouldn't necessarily want to box it out entirely, but I don't want to go to the community saying this is what we're proposing.
Can I interject that I think it would be just as easy to have these graphics show those Ash Street feasibility studies and not have the through roads at all shown on the plans.
Yeah.
That's a quick fix.
I think that's, I'm glad for the work that you did to lay these out there, but that's my perspective.
Yeah, it's a little less
other
about the
members here, yeah.
connectors for me too, and more about the zoning and what could be done in
Yeah.
that realm.
But we did ask for
We did
some-
ask to explore that, yes, at
Yes.
the last meeting, so.
And
And I was nervous then, and I'm not any less nervous now.
well, and I think, you know, the topography where you see how much that grade changes may make this a moot point in the end, or need more turns in each of
Right,
those.
right.
You take a lot more
Not
land
gonna
to get
switch
down.
back down
Yeah.
that thing.
I mean, I think the connector 3, which is basically at that medical office site, probably is manageable, but when you get farther east than that, I think it gets harder.
Yeah,
In multiple ways.
right.
And I honestly kind of feel like, you know, in practice, if you're going to connector 3, why not just go to connector 2, which is two
Just
lots
use
down the
that,
street?
right.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean,
You know, that is currently on an RMLD parcel, so it's, you know,
Right, so
it's
all
all,
of this
yeah,
is
it's
just-
town land compared to residence land, right?
I don't know if we own that or if I think RMLD is full ownership. There's some paper right of ways back there and things to add to the convolution, but it was just, again, if development happened where there are different areas they could connect to and from.
Yeah. I would kind of keep 1 and 2 on there. I don't know, it just feels a little,
Yeah.
knowing what, everything you just said
Mhm.
about, we don't necessarily know how easy that would be. It feels a
Mhm.
little bit less, like it feels like it would, yeah, it feels a little less politically difficult, right?
Right.
And I, at the same time, I'm saying, it does make sense to have a way to connect over there from Ash Street so that there's continuity of streets. And those, to me, are the preferable ones. Okay.
That makes sense.
Do you wanna go to your list?
Yeah, so I just wanted to try to start to see, and some of this is again getting back at the Ash Street, but not all of it. If Ash Street would to be allowed in the zoning, we made a few amendments to allow that 2-family use. To say something like an Ash Street parcel could now qualify for that. That's where we changed those new minimum lot sizes. To say that 10,000 square feet for 2-family and townhomes and the 1 acre for mixed use and multifamily. That way, if it's mixed use, you're looking at a level of intensity and that only really qualifies on larger parcels separated from the residential. We looked at that 15 units per acre.
I wanna pause and make sure everybody's following you, cause I'm
Yep.
barely following you. Is everybody following what Andrew is saying? I'm looking at the agenda that you had for us, the discussion questions, and I'm seeing some of this, but not,
Right.
what do you want us to look at to follow along with?
Yeah, like what are our,
is,
Yes, that's what I'm grabbing right now, chief.
cause we could keep talking it.
Otherwise, we'll
through and
keep
through,
talking in
through.
circles, and I couldn't tell right there, Andrew, I'm sorry if you were
Nope.
talking about just if we're going to talk through each of the buffer areas, or if you're talking about the entire area.
Yeah, which I guess is back to the buffer areas more specifically where we were looking at, but again, it's all related to Ash Street, I guess, like if that wanted to be considered, so I guess that's the striking point, because if Ash Street does not want to really be considered for zoning, I don't think there's a need to look at like 2-family or row home, smaller minimum lot sizes. Because no other lots necessarily fit that type of criteria or qualifications, that even if they are less than an acre, they don't fit a residential typology really.
Yeah.
So,
there are some Ash Street parcels that are already in the original district, you know, farther up towards Main Street.
That are 2
that are
families,
small, yeah,
right?
yeah.
That are small.
that are smaller than an acre,
Right.
yes,
Yeah.
but
As are, I believe, the Walnut Walgreens site.
That's about an acre and a half. So like there were pieces of lots like behind RMLD that were less than an acre.
That's right,
But,
landlocked.
and closer to 10,000, but like I don't think a two-family use needs to be established behind RMLD. So those minimum lot areas were more again getting at the Ash Street discussion if they wanted to be considered. Not a hard question, so.
Andrew, my feedback is I think you hit the nail on the head. You know, if a lot is 10,000 or under, should be allowed to go two-family, because that would give it that transition buffer, right, of getting into multi. And then I do think on some of the larger parcels, you know, enabling some of that mixed use to start coming into play really makes a lot of sense. And you can see by this graphic how well it squares off when you do in fact include, you know, that length of Ash. The site starts, a lot of things begin to open up, right? Ways to connect, new roads that can be constructed, further, you know, divisioning. So it
Guy, I'm not sure I'm following you, if I may. So Ash Street, when you get past a certain point, and I should have driven down it last month, is quite residential. What I'm not following, and so I'm hoping you can explain it to me some, is I'm not following the compelling need or drive to open up the residential area to mixed use as opposed to keeping it on the.
You're putting the mixed use in their backyard, Heather.
Yeah.
You're putting buildings and mixed use into their backyards. Right? So you're stating it's residential, but it's not anymore. You're developing everything behind them.
Well, that's, I mean, how is that terribly different from, say, how Main Street is now? Granted, you know, all of the problems that we sometimes have with Main Street because we maybe should have, actually, it's a really good example, because maybe we should have, I wasn't around then.
This is 53 acres more, almost 100 acres of land. It's not even comparable to Main Street.
Well,
right? Main Street's a thoroughfare. This is a giant plot of land.
Yeah, yes, and nonetheless, we do have, and perhaps on Main Street, that could have been buffered better years and years and years ago, but we do have residential next to mixed use. I guess I'm laying out there, I'm not convinced that it makes sense that just because
The
a
roads
residential
create the
area
buffer is what I'm getting at, right?
Yeah,
The streets end up creating the buffers versus people's backyards. And that is a much more natural break. And then if they choose to remain as a single family residential in that Ash Street corridor or the Bolton Street corridor, or what have you, that's their choice and that's fine, right? But to not allow them to develop, redevelop, be included is short-sighted for us from exercising a master plan on this area and really rounding out the shape of the parcel, right? Look at how many streets now you can connect in and create straight passageways directly into the site, right? If this were ever to be one large site, right? A lot of great connection points versus this very hinky little road that gets created through RMLD's backyard from Ashley that I don't even know how you ever truly connect that in a reasonable way, other than that one hinge point, you know, up by the Walgreens, which is a disaster as it is today, will only get worse. So there needs to be other entries and exits into this.
Yeah,
And opening up that straightaway, opening up that entire frontage, really, I know it may be hard to see, but it does a tremendous amount in unlocking the potential of this.
Yeah, and I do think it serves the question too of how do they benefit on their own individual lots if they choose to, or get at the entire district and also serve both. And so.
Yeah, and I guess
it doesn't hurt them. It only gives them, you know, potential option down the line, right? So, and they can always remain as they are. They don't have to incorporate themselves.
Well, okay, so let's play this out some. So we're talking about homes on Ash Street on one side of Ash Street. You know, and we've talked about having kind of like working in the connector at 1 or 2. not the 3 or 4 connector that's going right through residential properties now. And what we're talking about here on this picture is having multi-use then on one side of the street, but not the other side of the street. So at what point, so, you know, I'm living on the other side of Ash Street and I'm having maybe larger developments right across the street from me. That's going to impact my livability, and why not include me in that as well? I guess where I am right now is accepting the notion that there might be multi-use or multifamily 250 feet away from the front of the homes on Ash Street, and looking at how in our zoning and our guidelines we buffer that for the impacts to them, as opposed to just extending it out and now impacting the people across the street and causing a furor among people on Ash Street who think we now want to build roads through their properties. That's the perspective I'm bringing.
I'd say that's a bit of a gross miscategorization of what's happening, right? You have a road buffering development versus people's backyards. So it's okay to put it into their backyard, where a building could be 20 feet off their backyard. That's the size of 40 feet. But it's not okay to have a main road, right? A yellow line road.
But we don't have to say it's okay within 20 feet. We have some control over what the setbacks
But
are.
you can do the same thing off of Ash Street and push the buildings further off Ash. The road breaking the development, to me, is the major hinge point where I think this becomes something that makes sense versus doesn't. Sticking buildings in people's backyards when it's this large of a scale of a development. This isn't a corridor, right? This is a 100-acre parcel of land that we're master planning to have big box retail, commercial mixed use, all different typologies.
Guy, I don't think big box retail was part of the vision or goals at all. I'm sorry to cut you off there, but that's not what we were discussing.
That was certainly one of the topologies that was placed in there earlier, no? We talked about having a couple large anchors.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna need it at the end of the
Supermarket,
day,
not
right?
like
So you're talking about hosting a variety of typologies in people's backyards. It makes a lot of sense to have the road be a natural buffer. And if you want to set it back 20 feet, 30 feet off the road, fine. That makes a lot of sense to me too. But to not bring it to Ash Street, to Bolton Street, I mean, I think we're doing everyone a disservice.
Okay.
I can see it, but I get not everyone can, but it does make a lot of sense.
I'm interested in what others have to say, and I will just also pause and say I am not convinced having because the road, yes, is a buffer when you're looking at it from the sky. It's not so much a buffer when you're living across the street from it. Yeah. I also appreciate what you're saying about being careful to not overpower people's backyards with what we're proposing to happen on the pink area. Yeah.
I mean, it'll undoubtedly happen, right? Otherwise, you're making even larger constraints on what can be done there because of the commuter line. So you have a narrow corridor there without incorporating Ash Street for certain typologies. It gets a little tight. It's tough, and I get your point. It's not. I'm not being dismissive of what you're saying. It's you're giving people an option. They don't have to exercise the option.
And
right?
I guess I think this is something falls into a category of something that I would want to take to whatever our next public, do we have time to take it to the next public discussion? Like, these are things that we'd considered.
We were gonna start talking even as far as tomorrow, if there was thoughts to talk about this further, to start scheduling like that Ash Street adjoining neighborhood focus group and say, what do you think? And part of that too is to say on those lots, it's gentle density increases as they exist today, right? That second or third unit to not take away from across the street, right? Match those heights to 35 feet that's allowed across the street in single family zoning. Gentle density, that's one unit. There's already a series of 2s or 3s up and down Ash Street. So things like that said, if you maintain the lot that you have, you can add to it, but not grossly in a way that says like whoa, this is so different across the street.
You've got twos and threes already on these small acreage lots. You're looking at 10 dwelling units per acre of density already. Some of those. So I know I'm going to give you guys a chance to say, but I just want to say that I really appreciate guys' comments because I do think that we can't think about it as putting connectors through residential lots. It's more like if this were to be redeveloped or become part of a larger concept for that south side, then it might be open up an opportunity for another connector. But the connector's not coming first.
That's right, that's right.
Well, so something, I mean, we've heard the thoughts about Ash Street versus not, but originally you didn't include it, correct?
Those parcels?
Yes. And but now you are including it, so what was the thought before not to include it?
I
Just so we
honestly think
understand.
that, maybe you have an answer to this, Andrew, but my thinking was that we had an Eastern Gateway District boundary that was established 10 years ago that didn't include those parcels because they weren't in the industrial zone.
Okay.
And I think that's probably where that originated, but
Correct.
we've heard a lot of feedback about the challenges of connectivity to that south side. Access is really just from New Crossing today. And so the potential for not only through connectivity, but just more connectivity to the south side, to me, it seems like a tremendous opportunity.
So just because it wasn't zoned industrial prior is why it wasn't included? Just wanting to understand.
Yes, out of the existing priority development areas and that industrial district, that was the natural first inclination, I think, to focus on. We focused a lot on 2021 on that South District side. I think even more so on the North District side this time. We feel like we spent a lot of time and effort on that, just given the scale of the parcels and the idea of reimagining along Walker's Brook. But now as further discussions and the vision starts to take shape, it's just come up as hang on, is this something worth looking at? And so, which I think it is.
Let me see if I'm clear on some of the stuff. The green section is buffered primarily for residential. The blue is primarily commercial.
Yep.
The purple is intended to be, well, maybe not mixed use.
Could call the green and the
residential.
purple the same, yes. So
Okay, green and purple are residential.
should have had them match colors
Right.
because they're the same buffer zone and allowances.
But there's
The
commercial
Yeah.
on the tip, so it should
Right.
like be cut in half.
Yeah, there
somehow.
already is some commercial on the tips, right?
Yeah.
Right, and that's again getting to the point that maybe there's some small commercial allowed in these, like retail or office or your neighborhood convenience store, but we're still limited to the same building type that exists.
I think that's a
Is
great
the
point.
line right? If we already have some commercial at the tips, should
Yeah,
we
so-
be changing the line to be, rather than
Yeah, I
implying that
would.
retail is allowed, let's change the line.
We took these two zones and actually made a zone that was here, that was the commercial.
Yeah.
So we added a fourth one at the point that.
Right.
Or just change
Or just extend the pink into those
Yeah, like-
areas, yeah.
change the
Yeah.
purple and the
Well, that was
green
the hard
locations.
part, right? It's like, one, what's the right number? But buffering from the street seemed like it made sense rather than like a rear lot line or something that does encroach far.
Well, and I think part of where there's a little disconnect is like, okay, so there is commercial, but are we proposing commercial all the way down to the Reading town line on Ash Street, or is it kind of feather back into residential?
Right, at least based on the existing
Could
lots.
affect-
Again, you can imagine parcel consolidation, but sometimes we also try to look at the lots on their own.
Yeah.
None of those residential lots, I think, qualify for the 1 acre mixed use as they stand. So that virtually envisions you to imagine more north where you hit that 1 acre minimum around the corners here in tips, that's your commercial typology, mixed use allowances because of the 1 acre minimums. versus transitioning down at your 10,000 square foot level for 2 to 3 family.
But also, commercial's not really viable down there.
Right.
As it's currently configured, but now if you all of a sudden had Shackford or Avon going through that from Main Street into the district, that could change the viability of some commercial in that area. But.
Yeah, and that was kind of what I was hinting at, was we don't know what it's gonna look like tomorrow, but what we do know is that if we make certain concessions or restrictions today, that tomorrow will never get to the point of really the intent of what we want here, right? What the town deserves, right? An opportunity to really have an area that can be redeveloped to provide some substantial tax basis and large-scale development that needs to occur, even though we're looking at smaller typologies. So having that, Ash Street is a busy street, and it can certainly sustain that smaller multifamily mixed use if there was the right parcel, right? And if you have any one of those cut-throughs that connect Ash to Main today become something that brings access all the way through into the heart of the redevelopment, then I think it all starts to make a lot of sense.
So another question that I have is, so you're talking about bringing this to that community, you know.
I'm sorry.
What happens when they say, what if they don't want this?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, then they choose not to change it. I mean, they're not required to redevelop their property, right?
No, I'm talking more about like when Andrew goes to the community,
To the focus
to the
group.
focus group for this.
And
You
they
have to be prepared that there's gonna be most of us live through MBTA communities and felt
Yeah.
that pushback.
what we're proposing here in the purple area, and I'm less familiar with the green area other than where the Walgreens is. What we're proposing here is to not allow exactly what the original version of our MBTA communities bylaw would be, but it would be to allow the multifamily, and that it just stopped the whole process. I mean, it didn't stop it ultimately, but
Right.
so what happens if they say, no, I don't want a,
I mean, I think that discussion is
To me.
around density, right? And what's the appropriate densities? And that's where when you look up and down Ash of 1s, 2s, and 3s mix, that maintaining that allowance, but a single family home there right now with the 3 family next to them cannot do the same in the current zoning. And just see if they have the appetite to say, I don't need to change at all in my future. I'm happy with the way Ash Street is set up now. But in 10 years, 3 family, right, allowance might be a benefit for me. And we had calls up and down Ash. I think during MBTA communities, there was a few people calling to see if their parcels would be considered for MBTA communities for allowances of 2s or 3s, and saying that's not everyone. I'm sure there's people that might not, and so. But
our bylaws allow duplexes now, right? Not 3?
our bylaw does not allow a duplex unless you were built before 1954 and prove the 8 rooms and things. You get the ADU now by rights, but.
And just to make sure I'm following you, because I think this will also be hard for the community to, I think it's hard to kind of just, whatever we take out, I want it to be simple and easy to understand. That the reason we wouldn't just change the pink zone to incorporate the existing retail is because we're relying on the notion of multifamily requiring a full acre. Because the way one might, I'm sorry, I know I'm gonna be a devil's advocate around this a lot, right? Because ultimately we need to take this to the community and they will read things and they will try to figure out what we're trying to say. If we take the purple and the green zones and we zone to allow, say to the green zone, we zone to allow Walgreens along that entire strip, but we don't think that will happen because there's not a parcel that's big enough to do that. I get worried that people will be worried that we're just zoning for retail up and down the entire strip. And so I guess why not just carve it out and to put it into the pink zone?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could, and that's maybe a different consideration where the point of this was of the green one was to force the transition of heights, right? And kind of typology down,
Heights,
because
okay.
you don't want a 4 or 5 story building right along Bolton with single family. So this was limiting what is a big parcel in General Way that is right here in fronting Bolton, to transition downwards and say that's what we want and that's what we want to encourage. This was pretty similar in the vein of, again, more about limiting dimensions until this recent discussion of 10,000 square foot allowances possible. You could potentially look to establish it here, but the way it wrote in the bylaw was, I would say, not easier, but made sense to transition from ash. Versus if you tried to just write in, say, a line here, what you're talking about is a different sub-district now, versus what we have was one whole district with consistent allowances up and down residential corridors.
That makes sense.
I've got an idea. What if you changed your purple to green, but at the tip of the arrow, you shade it green and purple to indicate this is a transition zone. We don't know which way it's going to go. You know, Rite Aid, whatever it is, I can't remember right now, may not be there. And at least visually, it would make sense. Because it's still got the green going through it and it's got the purple now.
Right.
Which is something else.
Yeah.
But I think part of what you're saying is to limit all of those 3 colors, 3 250-foot strips to a lower height.
Right. And that's where, and let me see if I can find it, and I don't know if it'll be exactly matching to
And the blue one as well,
recent
right?
allowances, but where's my height one? I had a height one, but let me just show something like this. Like we could look to expand like a graphic like this, and this would be the intent of the discussion, is more graphics like this to say, right, now you can imagine this orange coming further down and saying in this zone 3 stories height versus 4 to 5 stories versus 4 to 5 stories, 3 stories only in the orange, and things like that. Graphics that kind of more show the separation of scales, which was similar to what we were doing here in terms of densities. Like now, right, with the change, you could imagine that 15 DUA down versus 20, 30 behind. Visuals like that again show we're not trying to overly allow on Ash Street to drastically change its characteristics today, but give it some allowances.
I like that idea better. And I wouldn't like to see the top yellow as long as that, but yeah, I like that as an idea. In other words, it's commercial now, or whatever it is now, industrial now, but it could become residential.
Right, but no matter what is there, it's not gonna be super tall. It's
Right,
gonna be-
it's gonna be 55 feet high, yeah.
Right.
Which
I think that makes good sense. How are we doing on your list? I know we aren't
I
really
feel like
following your
we've
list.
hit a bunch of little pieces of.
No, I think that was.
You wanna go take a look at the list and see what we've hit on? We can just go through.
Yeah, let me.
We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 items.
So I'm kind of gonna skip ahead, I think, to the last one there, because it came up in terms of like this big box type of allowance. And so we too wanted to consider the idea that like you do need anchors, right, and anchor developments, and that could be, your market basket. That could be, I don't know, a Target, Best Buy, you call it, I don't know. But what we didn't want at the same time was multiple big boxes and taking away the opportunity for what could be new commercial enterprises. So we had seen in other bylaws where they look, and none of these numbers are so specific yet or reasoned for any one reason or another besides size themselves, that as big box is needed, how much is too much? And so we wanted to look at the idea of saying, limiting something like a 50,000 square foot retail space and see if that warranted discussion, because I don't know.
What is a 50,000? Can you give us an example?
Do we have one in town?
Market Basket's probably your closest. Across the street might have been before it was changed and subdivided. If you imagine things like a Best Buy or Target, they range from 40 to 60,000 square feet, so give or take.
What's the Home Depot?
Home Depot is probably bigger than 50,000 square feet.
And then that
Get over
like
100.
Staples thingy.
Yeah,
that-
Staples might have been close to 50 at the time. But yeah,
Okay.
so it's the
Stop and
idea
shop.
that like, right, stop and shop, that like you don't necessarily, might not want one parcel becoming a big box and then the parcel next door becoming big box, and saying we're becoming similar to Liberty Tree Mall, I guess is how I would put that, where if you've been up to Danvers, Liberty Tree Mall, Aldi, Best Buy, Target, all just big box, up and down, Independence.
It's all the walkability,
Right.
usable open space issues and.
Yeah, I'm going back to it's in the slide deck, to the starred highlighted takeaway from the community workshop, that what people really seemed like they wanted was a mixed use environment with balanced residential, commercial, and publicly accessible open space. And I also would not like to go to the public saying, oh, we're gonna bring in big box stores, but just call them like large 50,000 square feet places.
Well, I mean, big box, I think more of like Home Depot, and we don't want, there's one on the other side of the street.
Yeah,
But a grocery store
Right,
is like, that's not a big box. That's
Right.
that's a grocery store.
I think of like Best Buy and big box,
like
and
a
like big warehouse style. I think of this style
Or Sam's
also.
Club or something
Sam's
like
Club. And so I would say, to answer your question, my opinion is yes, let's limit it to,
Yeah,
let's limit it.
and that's where I don't know how far is too far, because like, and I guess I'd have to do more research into something like Linfield Marketplace, like how many real large spaces do they have? But for example, we were saying lots greater than 15 acres, none of these are final numbers, but no more than 2 such 50,000 square foot spaces. Greater than 3 acres, but less than 15, no more than 1. Under 3 acres, you don't get a 50,000 square foot, because that's just taking up
You
the whole
can't.
parcel now.
Right.
And so
Right.
I don't,
Well, let me make sure I understand this again. 50,000 acres is roughly, square feet is roughly an acre and something.
right.
Okay, so now you're talking 2 different 50,000 units
Right.
in a 15-acre tract.
Right. Well, so like something like General Way is around 20 acres of size lot in and of itself.
Yes.
Is 2 the right restriction if we want to restrict 50,000 square foot retail? I don't know. You don't want to be too limiting that they don't get the anchors that they need, but you don't want to basically get only big box, I would say.
Right, I mean, I don't think
But I think mixed use gets at a different typology that isn't big box, especially when you're looking at 3/1 or 4/1s. And so it naturally gets at a different typology, I think, but that's only if it gets built as mixed use. So,
I don't think that's the typology you're looking for.
right.
And I think if you're talking about Linfield Market Street, I don't know, maybe Whole Foods is
Whole
50,000.
Foods, yeah.
But otherwise, I don't think there are any others.
Right, I'm
Right.
struggling to think of
It's like
Right.
a restaurant, it's larger, but certainly not that big.
Yeah,
So I just
The
didn't
Whole
know.
Foods,
Go ahead.
the Whole Foods in Linfield is 40,000 square feet.
so that's even smaller than 50,000, yeah.
Right. So that, I mean, this is just a thought of like, do you want to try to limit that type?
Yes.
I think we do, I think
Well,
in keeping with
you-
the vision, we do.
You could eliminate by that a hotel or something like that, because 50,000 is going up. It's not necessarily.
Yeah.
Hotel's not gonna have the vertical. Well, they could
No.
have the horizontal, that would be awful if it was a motel, but,
Right.
Yes.
I think this would be trying to be specific to retail, not a floor
Yeah,
area of
yeah.
a building,
Yes.
but like an individual tenant space.
Yes.
So,
I think we have to, we need anchors, otherwise none of this will ever happen or work, right? We need anchors and you have to at least allow for the possibility.
What if we were to simply say, no more than 50,000 in the entire north side
you could
of the
say
track?
something like that, right? Which I think is what the PUDI
And one has to be a
does
grocery
allow.
use.
And I think, and
Yes,
one has
right,
to
yeah.
be, can you do
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, I mean, and if you look at like other developments around like the Wayside Commons or, I mean, they have, or Legacy Place, they have the Whole Foods, and then they have the secondary anchors like the LL Beans that are
Yes.
much more in the 25 to 30
That's
range.
the thing, an anchor doesn't have to be 50,000
Right.
square feet.
Right.
I mean, do we even need more than one?
I don't think so.
At the space that we have down there.
At the 100-acre mark, I think we could sustain two easily. Two makes sense.
I guess there's a question of, can we and do we want that compared relative to the other things that were expressed
So,
in
like,
the workshops?
Those.
Hold on, Guy.
Oh, Guy, I was just gonna say, like, if you take the whole north side as one concept, like we had done that feasibility study for just the north side, which is, let's say now it's 50,000 acres, or just 50 acres, sorry. Then you could imagine a large grocery there and some secondary anchors.
Right.
But even then, I think 250s is a lot.
Right.
I think 250s is a lot if we want to get
Right.
everything else.
And I don't know if
that we wanna
50
get
is the right number. It could be 40, right, at the end of the day. But you want to try to allow a 40,000 square foot market basket or
Yeah.
something again. And so,
What are the office buildings that are on the north side? Are they, when you count their multiple floors, are they over 50,000 square feet?
So it could also be done as a footprint restriction as opposed to a
Yeah.
total square footage
Right.
restriction. So.
Well, I mean, that could be a question
yes,
for the
Tom,
public.
but,
Right? That's something.
That is a good question to take to the public, yeah.
Sorry, what was the
Yeah,
question?
so I think the 50,000 parameter kind of eliminates a lot of like super centers, right?
Mhm.
You're not gonna get a Costco. You're not gonna get a Walmart.
Right.
You maybe get a smaller Target, maybe.
Mhm.
You're certainly not gonna get a Lowe's,
Right.
right? So what are we talking about, right? And maybe you get like an experience place, like a Legoland that ends up doing like, I don't know, one of those things like they did in Assembly, right? Maybe you could end up snagging one of those where you still have retail on the bottom because they take a smaller retail footprint and they take some second, third floor space. We just want to be, and I don't even know how big that space is. I'm just giving an example of something other than retail that could come in that could be really exciting and good for the community. So that's kind of where my mind's at, and I just would hate obviously we need some direction here, right? Like, what are some examples of other tenants
Right.
that and what are their parameters? But like an LL Bean was a great example. Like that'd be awesome to have in Reading. I'd welcome it, right? So we wouldn't want to not have one of those.
Yeah, and I don't know if you caught, but that's also not 50,000 square feet. So if we have some examples, it seems like some of the, seems like some of the more popular and aesthetically pleasing areas that have some mixed use nearby they have anchors, but they don't necessarily have 50,000 square foot
Right, I
anchors.
think that 20 to 40 is the sweet spot. We can try to pull some specifics, but you hit the nail on the head, Guy. The intent was like less Walmart allowances and Lowe's and more that,
Yeah.
and so.
I think the 50,000 mark really eliminates a lot of those super centers, so they tend to be like, you know, closer to like the 100,000 plus square feet.
80,000 usually for something
Yeah.
like that. So.
Yeah.
Well, there's a LL Bean at exit 52 or 53 up 95. It's 2 stories.
That's the
That's the
Wayside
Wayside
Commons.
Commons, yeah.
Yeah, oh, that is, okay. I don't know how many acres, I mean, how many square feet that would be, but I doubt that that's over 50.
Just as an individual.
I mean, if you've been to their one in Freeport, Maine, it's enormous.
Yeah, but that's
Where a lot of them
their
don't wanna be.
flagship
Yeah.
one and a half, yeah.
Oh, maybe they want to move to Reading. Who knows? I'm just saying, you know.
The
LL Bean
existing
would be a
Stop
great
and
tenant
Shop.
for us.
The existing Stop and Shop is 70,000 square feet, and that's your 1
70,000.
story big box.
Yeah.
Okay.
How big is the market basket, Andrew?
I can get that. I only have it right now as one general way. I got it above 250,000 square feet in total.
That's not it.
Yeah, market basket must be like, I'm not even gonna guess, but it's sizable at the end of the day. Huh?
Yeah.
So did we, okay, there's like, yeah, sorry.
I just say the whole Wayside Commons development is 195,000 square feet. And the LL Beans often in those contexts are in the 20 to 30,000 square foot range, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm
Good
thinking,
size.
I'm thinking about, yeah, it's a good size, it's not 50,000 square feet. I'm thinking about the goals that the community said that I
Right.
tend to agree with, of keeping it a walkable scale.
Mhm.
Keeping a lot, knowing that we need to have an anchor tenant, but keeping it predominantly walkable.
Mhm.
And I think that having more than one really large
Yeah, and I do like,
retail front hampers that, yeah.
and I think getting at that across the whole district is probably the best approach, and saying whether that's one per side or one in general, and saying no, because the PUDI does that already, I think, to a degree too, that tries to aggregate floor area and say across.
And you're
the
talking
district.
about the sides as to the up north and south of the
Tracks.
the commuter rail,
Yes.
not the north side where Home Depot, Jordan's, because that also, I mean, it kind of feels like it's part of it, but we're
That's
not
true.
talking about it as like,
Right.
so part of what what we're talking about is like kind of the north of Walker's Brook already has a lot of those anchors,
Mhm.
and like bringing only a little bit of that across, like
Mhm.
that might be something we think about, is like how does anchors on one side of Walker's Brook Drive, what exists there versus what we want down on
Yeah.
the more residential, if we're thinking about it that way, the more residential side.
Mhm.
What do you think?
What do I think?
Yeah.
I think we keep the bigger box to the north side of Walker's Brook, and then maybe some smaller scale, but like maybe 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm hearing consensus around 1, maybe 2, but maybe like not 250,000, but
I think
2,
I could
yeah.
even phrase it, we could phrase it as like no individual retail space to be greater than like 45,000 square feet.
Well, I think it's gonna
or something.
matter, like, if we're talking about what the markets, what market basket actually is.
Right.
I think that will inform us a little bit more, because that feels like almost a good scale, because that, you know, it's kind of bringing the scale down.
And you can always do something as of right and then have special permit for additional.
That's, yeah, where I wanted to, that was my next thought, was that, you know, they can always come in front of the boards and discuss that,
Right.
but yeah, and
Maybe 50 is high, like the Home Goods on Main Street is 28,000 square feet, so like that still feels like a big box, but
It does.
it doesn't even get near the 50.
It doesn't even get anywhere near it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
it looks bigger.
The parking lot doesn't help.
That's why I don't wanna call these big boxes, cause we
Right.
still don't want big
Right.
boxes.
Large format grocery, how about that?
Right.
That's why I freaked out a little bit, Guy, when you said big box.
But it,
Yeah, no, I mean, we certainly don't want a Walmart supercenter, right? That's not gonna draw the
Right.
And Hillary makes a good point that this is also in the context of all that we have across the street
Yes.
from
Yeah.
Longersburg Drive. Okay, so one, maybe two, we find out how big Market Basket is and work with that context. But I'm also hearing that we kind of like the 30 to 40 square foot size better.
The existing Market Basket's either 55 or
And
60.
maybe we focus on.
Yeah.
Maybe
You
we
think it's
focus
55 or
on
60?
the
Yeah.
20 to 40 and don't mention anything above that.
Well, we want to keep the grocery store, right?
Right,
Yes,
well,
right,
that's,
Which are also sometimes trending smaller, especially in the mixed use,
right, well, with like a new Trader Joe's.
right, look at that, like
Right.
20,000
Trader Joe's and Whole
square
Foods are
feet,
happy
right?
to go smaller. Market Basket tends to want to stay up closer to
Yeah.
50,
Yeah.
60. So.
I want to get happily down the grocery aisle and not ram into other people. That takes us to 50,000 square feet. I'm good at 50,000
Or a
square feet.
I think some of the consideration is we don't want to have the grocery stores leave.
Right,
Right.
Right.
Because it's a very important part of community building,
yes.
is
Mhm.
having
Well, they also
places
employ
to
a number
go.
of people,
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
not only that, I mean, all the teens and,
Yes.
you know,
I don't think I've seen any teens in there.
well, school's
but-
still in. They'll be there.
Oh, you got it.
College kids will
Baggers
be
and
back
stuff like that.
soon. Yeah.
They're
Maybe
already
the
coming back.
last piece, without getting into, again, the specifics of numbers, but the idea of commercial requirements in mixed use, and we've seen it both in downtown and on Main Street, and in both good and strong ways, that it can be a limitation. And so we wanted to, right, knowing that the idea that this is a commercial area and maintaining commercial is important, we wanted to open the idea of, on a mixed-use residential building, is there a certain requirement of commercial necessary or desired? Or is it just mixed-use commercial? Because, right, we look at the South Main Street bylaw, which says 25%,
Yep.
which is very, very hard to achieve. And we've seen in downtown examples where commercial has been built and occupied. In most mixed-use cases, they're about 6 to max around 10%. There's some outliers in there, but it averages around a 6 to 10% floor area being commercial.
Of total floor area?
Of total floor area. And so we only wanted to throw it out there because it's something Reading's used before. It is important to maintain commercial across this district. But what's the best way to go about that?
I see in here that you have 25% of first floor area is as one of the examples.
Yes, yep.
And what my question for that is, clearly you need to have a certain amount of floor area to get you up to the
Right.
residential above. But 25 feels like it would be 25 of it, of that first floor would be used for the residential versus, right? Cause what is,
Seems like.
well, parking,
Yeah, so-
parking, this is the gross floor area, so it wouldn't be parking.
But
Yes.
parking can be like tucked behind the first floor, and so it limits the build area of the
Right.
first floor.
So my question was, is what, in the projects that have been approved in the last 5 years or whatever, what is that percentage of first floor area, do you know?
The first floor area, I might
Yeah, because
have-
that's exactly what's on my mind, because it seems like the limiting factor with the percentage of just gross floor area is the parking has to go
I
somewhere.
think it's a really interesting conversation because, we run across it all the time and the trade-off is parking, right? The more first floor area we encumber with building, the less area we have to park. So it's almost chicken and egg with what are we gonna look at for a parking requirement?
Right, or maybe it's the parking requirement that makes the limitation.
Right.
Like that could be part of it.
Yes, that
You
should
know,
play an
And then the other thought is, what if we said it's not so much the area minimum requirement, but for every square foot of residential use you have on the ground floor, you have to have an equivalent in commercial. So if you had a 1,500 square foot lobby, first floor, whatever, another 1,500 in amenity space, you had 3,000, you'd have to have an equivalent 3,000 square foot commercial area. There's other ways to look at it and do it more than just saying minimum, you have to have this,
Yeah,
25%,
that's what I wanted
50%
to
coverage.
ask, is there's other ways to consider it, cause I don't think the percentage is the best way at all
I-
times.
One other possible metric for how to do that is because the most important thing, which you're trying to achieve, is an active streetscape, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's another approach, which is to think about the primary frontage of a mixed-use building, like on a primary street versus a secondary streets, and to have the percentage of the frontage have to have an active or commercial use in it. And that has nothing to do with necessarily the square footage of the retail space. It's more like a liner. And it could be, you could say, well, it has to be at least 30 feet deep, a commercial use, but it's really about creating an active streetscape. So it should be about the percentage of frontage and not necessarily the square footage percentage of the first floor.
Yeah,
The danger with that is if you're creating grids, you have frontage on four sides.
Right.
Well, they're not all likely
there
to be the
must be a way
same.
to get at that. I mean, there are
Prior-
corner
priority.
buildings all the time, right?
There
Well, I
must
think
be,
he was just talking about primary street as opposed
Yeah.
to, but
right, but that's, yeah,
We
So for
did
some-
something similar in the recent bylaw that we wrote in Winchester, where primary frontage had a certain, twice the percentage of required to secondary streets. So, you know, like North Main Street corridor is a primary artery, and then the secondary streets that plug into that, they only have to have like half of the percentage of that facade activated.
And then in something like this though, then do we need to identify where the primary and secondary areas are in our new zone?
so that was part of the point of the designations of residential and commercial
Okay.
corridor being Walker's Brook. We do at one point need to talk about like when new ways or if new ways were created inside some of these lots, even if they would be private, how we treat that. And that might be smaller front setbacks, but commercial requirements and things of that nature, so it's a future aspect we still need to think about.
I like that, and I also like what you said about having kind of a minimum depth. I'm just thinking about some of the proposals we've seen over time where it's like, is that really gonna be a viable space?
So let's say devil's advocate here, right? Because I'm running into this issue in another community. You get 100 by 100 square foot building. Gives you a 10,000 square foot footprint. You have a 30-foot minimum depth. So right off the bat, you're limited to 70 feet of depth for your parking structure, and then you've got other things, so you're really like at like 65 and maybe a setback on the other side, some building area, and then you need a drive aisle and circulation. And all said and done, you can't develop the 10,000 square foot footprint anymore because you can't fit enough parking to justify the density above it. So it's a slippery slope, guys, and it's tricky, and I'm not saying there's a right or wrong answer here. It's very, very hard. There's other ways to activate street fronts with art installations and other things where they don't require a 30-foot depth, where you can get creative.
I can see that. I also want to be sure that as, when we're kind of zoning for a blankish slate here, that we don't inadvertently have future CPDCs approving retail space that ends up not being usable and hard to rent out, That's something that I want to be careful about also.
So again, I think you can put forward a target and allow someone to come in and
Make a case.
present an argument why there needs to be relief on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and remember, the health department passed a regulation wanting garbage cans inside the buildings, inside the building structure.
Even more.
That was beyond our control.
Yeah.
And it's a good point. It should be, Tom, but it's just another limiting factor of it's just chewing into that square footage and then transformers and.
Yeah. And the
It just-
bicycle
yeah.
racks and all that kind of stuff too.
Oh,
And
yeah.
Andrew was trying to say something
No, I was
also.
just gonna say the same. I just worry that depth starts to really impact where utilities and access to garage points and things like that start to get placed. And so,
Maybe an
So do you
example is
want to bring us some examples of other, in the context of all that we've discussed, some suggested ways to do this? I mean, if
I think so.
several different ideas have been
Yeah,
thrown
let's
out
think
there,
on that a
I think
little
that we
more.
are at a consensus place yet.
By the way, Home Depot is 63,907 square feet by my takeoff tool. Not Home Depot, I'm sorry, Market Basket, apologies.
Yeah.
Say, wow.
one example, Andrew, is the building opposite the Chase building that has parking under the commercial. I mean, it's got commercial on Main Street. It's got parking under the footprint of the building.
Which building was this?
It's opposite Chase Bank.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Right. So that's like an example. And I only have these as percent of total building area, so I can break it down to like a first floor. But like if I look at garage square footage on 40Rs, which downtown's different, right? They're smaller lots at the end of the day, but the garage is averaging 30%. That's the building square footage, so they do eat up a lot of space. But I can start to put those numbers down.
Andrew, are we allowing garage structures?
I would assume so, yeah. Yep. Well, sorry, do you mean like a separate parking garage?
Independent garage structures.
It's not expressly written or prohibited. It's probably worth a discussion because it could certainly save area, but it's not a pretty building in
not-
the area.
We can't go down.
It doesn't add to the walkability. And
Really?
when, just to confirm, when you were talking about garage space, you meant like a building's space
Over,
where the cars go.
Right. Parking garage, I think, is a separate discussion that's warranted. I think at the workshop, a lot of people thought about them and used them a bit more effectively in their like draft concept layouts, and people weren't at the workshop necessarily opposed to parking garages, but because it does set you there to walk and have the district less vehicle oriented passing through, like Linfield Marketplace is a lot
Again,
of parking.
yes.
With design guidelines and stuff, you can, mandate liners for garages and things
Right.
like that.
Right, and they
Yeah,
would
ramps, yeah.
and not up against the, not within that 250-foot setback, it could be
For sure, it would be
limited
prohibited
and have
there.
that be
Yep.
further back from the.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me think about
It
that.
actually could be an interesting play on the topography right behind. That's actually pretty interesting because you could almost have like a drive over the top garage where you're entering from the top floor and then being able to park below if you're coming in from the Ash side.
Well, and I mean,
That's
if you
interesting.
think about like the assembly, that's a dense and walkable with a lot of residential.
Well,
It's
you got
incorporated.
high water table though.
Right. Well, we do have some
Right.
a little bit of high water table. Yeah.
If it was incorporated properly, I think it could be,
I mean, I
it
don't know
wouldn't
if
have to be eliminated.
it's a great example, but my mind always goes back to Northampton. I think there's a parking garage that like connects to their commercial developments and it keeps your cars separated, but now you
Another
can
nice
walk.
example is downtown Portsmouth. There's a parking garage.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
feeds right into the commercial street there.
Yep. Interesting.
Right.
Something to think about because that would allow you to do a whole bunch of retail now that you're less concerned about the at-grade parking at podium, level.
Agreed. Yeah, we were gonna frame up a future parking discussion, both on not just the requirements per use, but yeah, parking garage and then things like, right, if private ways are built, is on-street parking desired, like you kind of see in things and just,
You know,
Right, you don't want.
Another interesting example is Legacy Place again, where you have parking garage above the ground floor retail.
That one is
Goes all the way
interesting.
along.
Oh, Legacy.
Yeah.
Where is Legacy Place?
That one is interesting.
What's Legacy Place?
That
It's in
is,
Dedham.
Dedham,
I think that was
It's like
20
the
years
Linfield
ago,
before
though.
Linfield was done.
Yeah,
yes,
Ton of
yep.
parking too.
An assembly, no, not assembly, Arsenal Mall in Watertown, where they have the parking structures, but all the stores tucked inside and residential.
yeah. I do think it opens opportunity. It's just gotta be
It has to be.
thought
It has to be
about.
done.
Yeah.
And you have to think about whether you want a garage door opening on the street you want retail. Because that takes up retail space.
Yeah, Tom, those entries and exits, absolutely, and creates, pedestrian concerns and all of that, yeah.
Yep.
I think we have enough feedback. We are meeting with the steering committee Wednesday to try to talk to them about engagement steps and just where this process is at too.
Okay, great. Can you remind us who else is on the steering committee?
The steering committee is a handful of residents, but also climate advisory rep and Corin Wolf, finance committee rep and John Sullivan, CPDC rep Guy, and then it's a handful of residents. I think 3 to 4 other residents as well. So
Anyone from Ash Street on it?
not anymore.
Good question.
Had
It's a
to
select-
drop off
board
at the
member.
point. Yes, a select board member. The Ash Street resident had to drop off.
I agree with everybody. It'd be a good idea to get somebody on.
It'd be a good idea to get them replaced,
Right.
Can do that.
Yeah, we had
if
a
possible.
Ash Street focus group too, so we could reach out to them.
Okay, yeah, maybe from the Ash Street focus group if there's somebody
Yeah,
that has
that's-
the bandwidth
That
to
was the
join.
plan. But reach out to that focus group attendees, but also more broadly to something we're still talking about of strategizing how that will be set up and when, ideally sometime, I think in June. I don't know that it would be before your next meeting to confirm some of those answers or
Right.
not. But we'll try our best. Commercial requirements we'll look at and think about if there's other creative ways we can find. We'll maybe find some commercial square footage examples. And there was one more that we were just talking about. We don't need to do commercial, right? So between those things, I think we got enough to work with.
Great.
So, the buffer zones kind of visuals and things that we can use.
Yeah,
Do
whether or
that
not
for
we,
the-
yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you, Tom, for being here tonight and bringing your ideas.
Mike.
Did I just call you Mike, Tom?
That's okay.
Missed by one.
No, I was just taking the credit.
It's not the worst thing.
Apologize.
No worries. All right.
Great, Mike, maybe we can connect quickly tomorrow before Wednesday or anytime Wednesday, I guess, too, so.
Now you get to go home and eat?
Yeah.
Thank you for the feedback.
Okay. Close these windows. Got a lot open here. Next up, I think
I would.
thank you,
Yeah.
Michael. I
Yes.
think our remaining items will be much faster.
Yeah, yep.
We have some updates on one-stop grant applications. Why don't we start with that? We'll just go through these in order
Yeah,
on our other business
um,
agenda.
So one-stop grant applications in an early June deadline is a typical planning grant type to submit multiple different applications for. They house MassWorks, Housing Works, MBTA Catalyst, all these other things. At this time, we aren't a housing choice community. We haven't been for the last year or two due to a slight fall off in net new housing units and housing production in building permitting. I think the last 2 or 3 years we're averaging around 20 units an acre versus previous years was 40 Rs, another was trending towards 100, and so it's a bit easier to get into a housing choice designation.
Because the housing, I mean, this is something that's really important, right? That everybody here should know, that being designated a housing choice community gives you access to more grant funding.
More grants.
And we fell off because we no longer meet the criteria.
Right, and so how housing choice works is based on your last 5 years of building permits of residential units. If you're in a certain threshold, you only have to meet 3 to 5 best practices. As you fall off in units issued, you have to meet 8 best practices, 10 best practices, 12. We were in the lowest threshold. We had to meet, I think, like 11 out of 15 criteria. We couldn't do it. I think we got about 9 approved the last time we applied. And we couldn't make it again this year. So we didn't get housing choice, but that is a grant program that's funded things like Eastern Gateway, Walker's Brook, other planning efforts. So it has been a loss. We've been trying to wait, and this is tying into the next topic too, so they're kind of one mesh.
Yeah, they kind of go together.
Waiting on some permits to come through in some 40Bs, and also some of the Main Street developments that we've started to issue, like the Main in Pineville being 30 units. We're hopeful that in a 40B, we could get 24 to 74 building permits units. That would be a substantial increase for one potential year. Things like some 40 Rs that started to get issued towards the tail end of the last year or two will still count. So we're hopeful over the next year or so that we'll start to see that number creep up in permits issued, and we can get back to housing choice designation and open the grant opportunity, but it's not confirmed at this time. So in terms of grants, what we are looking for this year might just be related to 1 or 2, and one's being the Walker's Brook corridor design work that's ongoing, but we'd like to see if a grant could continue phasing. Like this current grant is about 25%. There's a lot of community discussion still to be had on it, but that's more specific to the roadway. And so that was one grant we were hoping MassWorks might continue to fund. And then we might look at like an Eastern Gateway design guideline support if this continues to progress and trend forward. That design guidelines are an important piece. We looked at it for Eco One Stop. We submitted for that for the same. We might get that award announcement soon if that happened or not. If it doesn't, we might pursue this one stop. So a little give and take there. So the grants, unless there are other thoughts, but at this time we're not yet at the need for like a housing production plan update or an open space plan update or any other longer term planning grants. The master plan was kicked around again and again, but again without substantial town investment as well, which I think right now with the town finances just isn't the right time.
It was not prioritized.
Yep. So that wasn't going to be submitted this year, but is still on the back burner of like, if and when we can, let's consider this. So those were about the grant updates. If you want one more housing permits update, we've dropped an SHI percentage. So the
Which is
the subsidized housing inventory, that's the one where you want 10% to be in safe harbor from 40B. We fell from about 9.8, I think closer to 9.5 or 6. The reason being for that mostly is that the Chute Street 40R that was previously approved, but the developer never built and has since resold, fell off and lapsed off the SHI. So that was a loss of 29 units on the SHI. We got 6 back through Johnson Woods that we issued occupancy permits for. So there's a net loss of 23 units. Again, getting back to like some of the 40Bs, if they get building permits, we might jump back up. It might not get us to the full 10% yet, but if we can get there, it would be great. If and when something like Main and Pineville gets occupied, that's the struggle with that one, is we have to wait till occupancy. That's another 3 units. So there's some coming online. It's going to take a year or 2 though. And then you're at the point where your census might start to be considered to reset your denominator. reminder. So there's a bit of subsidized housing inventory tracking going on and how we're gonna get there and maintain.
So it's occupancy and not the CO? It's physical people?
No,
Yes.
CO.
CO is
Yep.
the trigger,
Yes,
okay.
yeah, well,
So
I should say,
did you say, so it's for when we get the building permits for 40B?
building permits for 40B, occupancy permits for what we call local units, which is your inclusionary zoning on Main Street and Johnson Woods.
And these are for projects that we have approved.
Yep.
They should be in the pipeline. They are not being built or they are not pulling the permits that would help us to get our SHI up and help us requalify for housing choice grants.
Right, they could do both, so,
Yeah.
yes, so we're tracking all of them and trying to project the timelines, and some are closer than others. Right, occupancy is 2 years, right, probably, versus a building permit for something like a 40B that is trending towards it, and so.
As soon as they pull the building permit, that will help us out.
Put the request in, yep.
Andrew, how many are we short?
If I got all 74 on the 40B on, I think we'd be there. The 24, we end up back at 9.8 or 9.9, I think, so we wouldn't quite be there yet. So we're short about, call it 32 or so, I think, units.
Because we're not filing for the 50 unit in the back right now.
Right, right, that's what I figured, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all right.
All right, thank you for that.
Yep.
That was,
Quick update.
I just think it's important to get that all out and as a known information among this group. Okay, next up topic is, and I apologize, I never asked for any public, because there's only one person in the room, I know you would raise your hand, Tony. I never asked for any public input while we were talking about Eastern Gateway, and I apologize for that. You're sitting behind the podium, and I feel like I was talking to an empty room, so.
That's okay, I'll make comments at Wednesday nights.
I figured you would, thank you, and when I saw you there, I was just like, oh, Tony will raise his hand, okay. So please raise your hand when you feel like having a comment. Board reorganization or term expirations, I can't even talk. Board reorganization, term expirations, and appointment thoughts. Those of us who are up for reappointment received a message from Laura Gem, town clerk, inviting us to reapply, and anybody who is an associate member can apply to be a full member. Let's just talk about who is up for reappointment. I am up for reappointment. The first question is who's up for reappointment and who's not coming back? That was, do you want to put that on the vocal record so the guy can hear you?
Okay.
Hillary's up for reappointment and I will not be submitting. Sorry. I will miss you guys, but life got too much.
So we need our new VASC, our volunteer appointment subcommittee, to recruit at least one member. I will probably reapply. There's I haven't put my paper in yet. If you're reapplying, applications are due the 15th, whatever day of the week that is, this Friday. Yeah. Anybody else up? I think it's just
I think
Hillary.
it's just those two.
Okay. Yes, Tony. Tony's raising his hand.
I'm sorry, I thought the applications for volunteers was due May 31st.
Let me see if I can confirm.
That may be true. And it may be that they've requested forms from current members to reapply by the 15th.
I apologize, Madam Chairperson. Tony DeRezzo, 130 John Street.
Yeah, sorry, and so let me, because this just came up and we're talking about this, and I don't, do you have the right information?
Volunteer application for annual interviews are due May 31st.
Okay,
Annual interviews for new applicants and incumbents seeking reappointment will be scheduled between May 15th and June 15th. So as incumbents, you might be scheduled.
so incumbents and reappointments, which is kind of the same thing,
Right.
May 15th.
Not a deadline, you just might be scheduled for your interview
Okay,
after May 15th.
after May 15th, and then, right, so applications for new appointments are due May 31st.
Okay. Correct.
Good, I'm glad we clarified that.
Which, sorry, only in conjunction with that, and I wanted to try, sorry, maybe you should go to your next, if you have anything.
No, go ahead.
I just, usually come July, we elect new chair and vice chair.
Yes.
Or at least one is in place by July, so that would potentially line up at least June considerations, if not a June vote, depending on how you prefer to do it, if you want the new chair established for the July meeting or to vote at the July meeting. But you'd
That's
probably
right.
consider the reorganization at that time.
We would consider the reorganization at that time. Will we even know who's on the committee?
Right, I guess you might wanna wait till you have a full board. at
I
that
think we might wanna wait. I'm just thinking about this, is that if new appointment applications aren't due until May 31st, there's a chance we'll know
Mhm.
at our next meeting, which would be what, June 8th-ish or
I
so?
think so.
I think we should strive for a reorganization vote on June 8th, but if we don't know who's on the committee yet, we may have to save that for July and just transfer the gavel right then.
Okay.
Gosh, the year's flying by.
I think they bumped the interview dates out this year, so it's a little later than usual.
Okay,
That's probably why it feels different.
I'll say, I'm making a note of my own notes, reorg June 8th. 6, it is the 8th, if we can. So Hillary, we'll see you at the June meeting, right?
God willing.
Yeah, like your term ends after the June
I
meeting?
believe so.
Yes.
Okay. Then I'll save all my thank yous till then. Okay, our last item is to review and approve our meeting minutes, which are in our packet.
I did not have any notes.
I don't think I had any notes.
I did not.
And I do not.
I move that we approve the minutes from
April
April 13th.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Tony.
Okay, do we do roll call? Yeah.
Sure.
Yes, because you're online. We'll do roll call. Guy?
Yes.
Hillary?
Yes.
Heather, yes?
Yes.
Alrighty, thank you. And with that, is there anything else that people wanted to raise? It's not on the agenda, so it should be light if you do.
Move to adjourn.
All right, thank you.
Second?
Yes.
Alrighty, all those in favor, yes.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Do we need to
Thanks
sign
all.
those?
Have a good